What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the video. Today, we are doing a Street Fighter game tier list. So we're basically be ranking every single SF2. I mean, not SF2. Every single Street Fighter game. This is pretty scuffed. We're recording this on my phone. Usually in the past, anytime I did a tier list video, I would do it on my laptop. But my laptop overheats so fast, and it just makes the whole laptop lag and buffer. So at this point, we're just gonna do it on the good old iPhone. So, let's do this. We're gonna rank every single Street Fighter game. So, starting with SF1, which I'm pretty sure this is regular Street Fighter because it just says Street Fighter. This game is D tier. Anybody who's ever played Street Fighter 1 knows that this game sucks. Yes, it's the game that started it all. Yes, it's the first ever fighting game to be made. But despite all that, the game is not fun to play. It's not good, and it's just pretty pretty janky, and extremely broken. One of the most broken games I've ever played. And I am a huge Street Fighter fan. Street Fighter fan is my favorite. Like, Street Fighter is my favorite game of all time. My favorite franchise. I love this game to death. But out of all the Street Fighter games, I have never beaten Street Fighter 1 to this day. And that's saying something. Anyways, let's move on to the next game, which is obviously Street Fighter 2. By the way, we're not going to be ranking every Street Fighter 2, because quite frankly, I don't got time for that, and I don't care. We're just going to rank the first Street Fighter 2 and the latest Street Fighter 2. Alright? Because half of them are the same. So, Street Fighter 2, The World Warrior, which is the first Street Fighter 2, it's one of the most iconic fighting games of all time. But the base game is not that good. The base game, it's good, but it's an A tier game. It's very unbalanced. It's broken, but it was the game that started it all. The most iconic slash... Well, not the greatest fighting game of all time. The greatest fighting game of all time is on this list, but we're not going to get to that yet. It's the most iconic fighting game of all time. Not the greatest, but it's the most iconic. But the vanilla Street Fighter 2 is pretty broken. It's fun. It's good. Back in the day when it came out, I bet it was awesome. But it is not S tier. I'm going to give it an A tier. But let's rank the latest Street Fighter 2, which is actually Street Fighter 2 The Final Challengers, which is for the Nintendo Switch. But I don't even think they have... Oh, they do have it. But arguably the best version of Street Fighter 2 is SF2 Turbo. And yeah, I think anybody who plays fighting games can agree SF2 Turbo is the best Street Fighter 2. That game is awesome. It's the most balanced Street Fighter 2. And so is, where is it at? This is the latest Street Fighter 2 to be made, which is Street Fighter 2 The Final Challengers, which I just had it. Here it is. So this is actually for the Nintendo Switch, but this is the latest SF2. And yeah, it's basically SF Turbo, but better. So that's an S tier game. Now, we are going to actually put these in order, but not right now. At the end, we'll put it in order. So, like, for example, if I think Final Challengers is better, I'll put it in front of Turbo. But we'll do that at the end. So, moving on, we're going to go in order. So now that we're done with SF2, because I'm not rating all the SF2 games, we got to get to the Alpha games. So first we have Alpha 1. So where are we going to put Alpha 1 at? Alpha 1's pretty good. There was a point where Alpha 1 was my favorite Street Fighter game, but I think base SF Alpha 1 is a B tier game. It's pretty good. It's fun. The roster is quite small. But it was their first game that took kind of like the anime approach with the art style, but it was also a pretty fun game. Alpha 2, which is my favorite Alpha game. Alpha 2 is obviously better than Alpha 1, more improved, bigger roster. I think it's more fun. Yeah, Alpha 2 is an A tier game. And then finally we have Street Fighter Alpha 3, and you would think, oh, okay, well, Alpha 3 is probably going to be A tier. I mean, S tier, right? No, I think it's also an A tier game. I think Alpha 3 is... It's basically just Alpha 2, but with a bigger roster and some minor differences. But I personally like Alpha 2 better. I think most people like Alpha 2 better. But yeah, Alpha 3 is also just a yeah. Now there is Street Fighter. What is this? Street Fighter Alpha Versus. Wait. Oh, Street Fighter Alpha Warriors Dreams. Is that Street Fighter Alpha? That's just Alpha 1, right? Okay, I have no like I'm a huge Street Fighter fan. I have no clue what this is. This Street Fighter Alpha nothing. If that is Alpha 1 and let's just say this is Alpha 1. I'm so confused. All right. This is Alpha 1, Alpha 2, Alpha 3. All right. I've never seen this before. Maybe I'm just forgetting. But there is another Alpha here, which is Alpha 3 Max, which is basically it's only on PSP. I do have the game. And it's basically just Alpha 3, but a lot of content. Probably one of the most content-rich Street Fighter games out here. Out. And it sucks that it's only a PSP game, but the roster is ginormous. The roster is pretty big. But I'm going to have to put it in A tier as well. It's better than Alpha 3, obviously, but I don't think any of the Alpha games are S tier games. So yeah, we're gonna put Alpha 2, Alpha 3, and Alpha 3 Max in A tier, Alpha 1 in B tier. So next, after the Alpha games, we have the Street Fighter 3 games. So starting off with the first Street Fighter 3, which is Street Fighter 3 New Gen. So this is the beginning of Street Fighter 3. And New Gen is a B tier game. It's the first Street Fighter 3 game. It's fun. I think the stages are one of the best parts about the game. The roster is pretty small, but that's how all the first games are. So yeah, New Gen can go there. Second Impact, I also think Second Impact is a B tier game. I don't think it's any better than New Generation. I think it's pretty similar. Not much to say about it. I think the roster did grow a little bit. And then for the greatest fighting game of all time, and you can literally ask any fighting game professional and ask them what's the greatest fighting game of all time. They're either going to say Street Fighter 3 or Street Fighter 2. If you go on any YouTube video, any YouTube video that is the top 10 greatest fighting games of all time, number 1 will most likely be Third Strike or Street Fighter 2. Literally the definition of fighting games. Street Fighter Alpha 3. Let's just put this at number 1 right off the bat. The greatest fighting game of all time. Alright, this game is iconic. It's a beautiful piece of work. And not even just one of the greatest fighting games of all time. I don't even know why I'm saying one of. Not only is it the greatest fighting game of all time, but it's one of the most iconic / greatest video games of all time. So I think this is a good time to actually put these in order. So we're going to put SF2 Turbo. I'm going to put Turbo behind Final Challengers. Because they're kind of the same. But obviously Final Challengers is better. Because it's like more improved. For A tier, Alpha 2 goes in the front. Alpha 3 goes in front of Street Fighter 2. And then Street Fighter Alpha 3 Max goes in front of Street Fighter 2. New Gen can go over here. Second Impact goes in front. New Gen behind, and then Alpha. Okay, so now we're in order. But yeah, Street Fighter Third Strike is... Come on, man. That is the fighting game. Street Fighter Third Strike is the fighting game. Alright, Street Fighter 4. Another easy one. Let's put this in S tier. Literally revived fighting games. It's one of the best fighting games of all time. Without Street Fighter 4, fighting games would not be how it is today because here's a little history lesson for you guys. Around the time when Street Fighter 4 was being released, fighting games were dead, okay? Nobody was playing them. Fighting games were 6 feet under the ground, and they were dead. Everybody was too busy playing shooting games and open world games and whatever games were being made at the time. Fighting games they went extinct. And then here comes Street Fighter 4, and It brought fighting games back to the top. And not only did it revive fighting games, the roster is ginormous. The game is fun to play. It was the first 3D Street Fighter fighting game, or 3D 2D fighting game. The first Street Fighter 3D fighting game was the EX series. But in the mainline Street Fighter 2D games, this was the first 3D one to be released. And yeah, it's such an iconic game. It's an S tier fighting game, okay? And to people who are not Street Fighter fans, or to people who are not fighting game fans in general, you might be watching this video and being like, oh, this kid is so biased. But I'm not, man. Street Fighter 3, 2, and 4 are some of the greatest games of all time, some of the greatest fighting games of all time. And if you were to watch a tier list, or like, not a tier list, a top 10 of the best fighting games of all time, chances are all 3 of them would be in the list, or 2 of them, or at least Third Strike. But definitely Street Fighter 2 and 3 should be on every list. But yeah, Street Fighter 4 is the game. Now that's vanilla Street Fighter 4. I think there's another Street Fighter 4 in here as well. So you have Street Fighter 4. That's Super. So that's Super Street Fighter 4. Where's Ultra? I think this is... Okay, this is Street Fighter Ultra. Okay, let's actually change this. Ultra Street Fighter 4 is where it's at. Ultra Street Fighter 4 is the best Street Fighter 4. So we're going to put Ultra there. I don't know if I'm going to rate the vanilla versions, because I don't really know much about the vanilla versions. But I think at the end of the video, I think we'll rank the other versions of Street Fighter 2 and 3 and 4. I mean, and 4 and 2. So, yeah, Ultra Street Fighter 4 in particular. But Super Street Fighter 4 and just vanilla Street Fighter 4 is also as good. So next, after Street Fighter 4 is obviously Street Fighter 5. And I think Street Fighter 5 is an A-tier game. Maybe when it first came out, not so. I think when Street Fighter 5 first came out, oh, this is vanilla. Okay, you know what? We're gonna rate that according to logic. So, vanilla Street Fighter 5 was pretty bad. A C tier game. Street Fighter 5 released. I think it didn't have an arcade mode. The story mode wasn't there. The roster was very small. And there was barely any content. And yeah, Street Fighter 5 had a very rough start. But if we're talking about modern day 2023 Street Fighter 5, yeah, it really fixed itself, and I think modern Street Fighter 5 is awesome. The roster is rich, the roster is good, the game is fun. I'm personally a fan of the V skill and the V triggers. I think it's easy to understand, and I don't think they should ever bring it back, but I think it's perfect for Street Fighter 5. I think the story mode wasn't good, but it was their first attempt at making a cinematic story mode, and I think it was decent. It was pretty rough, but I think it was decent. I love the character stories. Each character has a individual story that talks about, you know, the lore, or like, you know, what they're doing at the time of Street Fighter 5. And the DLC characters too. This was also the first Street Fighter game to have a guest character, which was Akira from Rival Schools. I'm not gonna count any of the Final Fight characters like Guy, Cody, you know, stuff like that, Hugo, because are they guest characters? Not really. You know what I mean? I wouldn't count them as guest characters since they've been around forever. But I guess you could say they're guest characters. But the first actual guest character is Akira from Rival Schools. And Rival Schools is in the same universe as Street Fighter, so makes sense. But I don't know if I'm going to put it over... This is tough because like Alpha 2 and Alpha 3 are very good games. But if we're being honest, right? Modern Street Fighter 5 is better than all of these games. Alright? Vanilla Street Fighter 5, hell no. Vanilla Street Fighter 5 can almost be down here with SF1. But with your minds not clouded by hate, and you actually, you know, look into it. 2023 modern day Street Fighter 5 is a very good game. Um, and I would love I feel free to argue with me because I would love to argue with you and prove you wrong because SF5 is definitely top A tier game. Not S tier by any means, but it has more content, it's more fun, and I think it's better than any of these games. Here, okay? Might be a crazy hot take, but I'm kind of basing this list off of how fun the game is, how much content it has, and, you know, the effort that was put into the game. And the effort was horrible for SF5 Vanilla, but SF5 Champion Edition is a different story. So, moving on. By the way, we are going to rank the other stuff, like, you know, Street Fighter, the movie, the game, the EX games, stuff like that. But we're going to get the main line out first. So, the final Street Fighter game is Street Fighter 6. And, yeah. This game is a S tier game. My God. Street Fighter 6 just came out this year. And it is already one of the greatest fighting games of all time. The reviews are awesome. This game is appealing to casuals and pro players. It's fun. It's probably the fighting game with the most content ever. I don't even think, no, I think it's an actual fact. This Street Fighter 6 has the most content out of any fighting game ever. There is so much to do in this game. I could go on and tell you what you could do in the game. But if you've played the game, you know how much content there is. The World Tour, the arcade mode with character endings and you know, character artwork. And then there's so many things to unlock as well. You can unlock a bunch of artwork from World Tour, arcade mode, the season passes, which have cool rewards and stuff like that, and the battle hub, which have, you know, the arcade section where you can play classic arcade games, and the trading mode, the scrap heat, and the extreme battles. There is so much content in this game. Not only would hardcore fighting game fans put SF6 as an S tier fighting game, but I think casual people who, you know, play fighting games here and there would put SF6 at S tier. And by the way, in case you're wondering, like, oh, how experienced are you in fighting games? I'm pretty experienced in fighting games. Been playing it for years. So it's not like I'm just some casual fighting game kid who has been playing fighting games for like a year. I've been playing it for many years. And if I was a casual fighting game player, I would have probably had Street Fighter 6 at the top. I would have had Third Strike and Street Fighter 2 probably at the bottom. But this is coming from somebody who is pretty experienced. I don't have like a decade under my belt, but coming from somebody who's pretty experienced and has played countless hours of fighting games, trust me, I think these rankings are valid. And Street Fighter 6 is an S tier game. It's not better than Third Strike. Nothing's better than Third Strike. But it is right behind it. You know what I mean? So, moving on, we have these games. So let's just get the EX games out the way. So where is EX plus A? So I actually have this game. I don't have all the EX games. I only have this one. I don't have EX3 or... Oh, no, here's EX1. This is EX2. Okay, no, this is EX2. I have EX1. I don't have EX3 or 2. And the reason why I don't have that is because, well, I don't have a PS2. But once I do get a PS2, which I'm planning on getting one, then I'll finally buy those 2 games. But for EX1, since I've played it, I think it's pretty fun. The Street Fighter EX games are very underrated. It's basically Street Fighter's way of making a 3D fighting game. So, you know, when the whole 3D fighting game period was on top of the world, you know, the Tekkens, the Soul Caliburs, the Virtua Fighters, Capcom tried to hop into it. And they actually have some 3D fighting games like you know, Rival Schools and stuff like that. And you could even I forgot the name of the game, but yeah, 3D fighting games were the thing, so they tried making one, and I think that EX1 is pretty good. I wouldn't say it's better than any of these three games, though. And then, even though I have not played EX2 or 3, I think EX2 is right in front of EX1. It's a better version of EX1. And then EX3, this game's pretty good. Just by seeing gameplay and watching people play it, and the fact that I know so much about all of these games, I don't even have to play it to know the rating. And also hearing other people's opinions on the game, EX3 is a pretty good game. And I'd even go as far as to put it in front of Street Fighter 2. Vanilla Street Fighter 2. But I don't think it's anywhere beyond that. So that's it for the EX games. Next we have Street Fighter the movie, the game, which there's actually 2 versions of this, which I don't know why. I don't know if there actually is a difference. I think this might be the arcade version, and this might be like the home console version, so I guess we'll just rank this one. Street Fighter 2, the movie, the game, is a C tier game. It doesn't... people say it's horrible. It's basically Street Fighter with Mortal Kombat graphics. I really want to play it. Out of all the Street Fighter games that I haven't played yet, which are EX2, EX3, and Street Fighter the movie, the game, Street Fighter the movie, the game, I want to play so badly. Like, I would love to play a Street Fighter game with a Mortal Kombat feel. But from everything I've heard and everything I've seen, it looks like this game is a C tier game. But I feel like if I played it, I feel like personally I would love the game. But for now we're gonna keep it at C tier because I'm so unsure about the game. So yeah, that's for Street Fighter the movie, the game. So I don't even know if I want to rank these other games because I feel like it's kind of pointless. But I guess we'll do it anyway. So we're just gonna go quick with this one. Vanilla Street Fighter 4. Vanilla Street Fighter 4 was pretty good from what I heard of. It did pretty well. Vanilla Street Fighter 4 I'm gonna put at the top of actually no, I don't think it's better than the Street Fighter 3s. I think it is better than Alpha 1 and EX Plus and EX1. Super Street Fighter 4 is a different story. I feel like this one is definitely up here. Right behind Street Fighter 5. Oh, hold on. What did I do? Oh, there you go. Okay. I accidentally moved it. So now we got the Street Fighter 2s and the alphas. I have no clue what this is. Okay, so this game right here, not ranking that. This, not ranking that. So now we got Street Fighter 2s. Street Fighter the Anniversary Edition. I keep accidentally moving these. Street Fighter the Anniversary Edition. It's basically Street Fighter 2, really nothing crazy about it. But it is better than Street Fighter 2. Vanilla, of course. Street Fighter New Challengers, Hyper Fighting, and then Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition. Hyper Fighting, I'm going to put behind Anniversary. And then New Challengers behind Hyper. And then Champion Edition, which I actually do have for the Sega Genesis. It's pretty good. It basically just has every version of Street Fighter 2. I think it is better than the Anniversary Edition. So there you go. That is my 2023 updated tier list of the greatest, of the best Street Fighter games. And I think this is a pretty solid list. Pretty good list. I think it's pretty accurate. I think a lot of people would agree with this. But not including order. So order aside. So what I mean by that is, if you just look over the part where I'm putting them in order from which ones I think is better. If you just look at the games that are in each tier, I think you can agree that no matter what order, this tier list is, we can all agree that Street Fighter 3, SF6, Ultra Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 2 Final Challengers, and Street Fighter 2 are S tier games. For A tier, I think every game in A tier deserves to be in A tier. Every B tier game deserves to be in B tier. Every C tier deserves to be in C tier. Every D tier deserves to be in D tier. So order aside, I think every game on this list should be at the tier that they're at. Maybe some people would want to switch up the order a little bit, but I think, and I think a lot of you can also agree with me, these games deserve to be in their list, in their rank that they're at. So that's it for the video. I don't think I've ever done a Street Fighter tier list video, and if I have, it was probably a while ago, maybe like 2 years ago, maybe, or something like that, maybe like a year and a half ago. So this is the updated list, and since I've had way more experience with fighting games over the years, since I think I ranked one, I think my answers might have changed a little bit, but not much, honestly. But let me know in the comment section, guys. What do you think about the tier list? Do you think that it was good? Do you think that you would switch out some games? So let me know in the comment section. What game would you switch out? What do you not agree with? And if you do agree with it all, just be like, oh yeah, I think this is perfect. So yeah, that's it for the video. I feel like I've been recording for a while, and this is on my iPhone, so I'm probably running out of space. So that's it for the video.